1865. The Union falters. Gettysburg falls. Washington burns. And the Confederacy wins. But what if that wasn't just a fantasy for Southern diehards? What if the stars and bars flew high above Richmond and stayed there? This isn't just a story of flags and battles. This is a look into two Americas, one proud and victorious, the other fragmented and struggling. It's a tale of ambition, tragedy, resilience, and a haunting what if that still echoes in American hearts today. In this alternate reality, General Lee never surrenders at Appomattox. Instead, with decisive victories at Gettysburg and Washington, Lincoln is forced into exile, and the Union sues for peace. The Confederate States of America becomes a recognized sovereign nation. Richmond becomes a new power hub, echoing with pride, tradition, and a fiery Southern nationalism. Streets are renamed after Confederate heroes, statues built sky-high. A new anthem is written. And for the South, this is more than victory. It's vindication. The United States fractures permanently. The North rebuilds, but without the South's agricultural power and with a shattered national identity. Meanwhile, the CSA develops its own currency, constitution, and foreign policy. Trade deals are struck with Britain and France. Cotton is king again. European powers, looking to counterbalance the U.S., now look south instead. Confederate diplomacy is suddenly fashionable. The Louisiana Territory is now a hotbed of competition. The Union claims the West, but so does the Confederacy. Texas becomes a launching pad for Southern expansion into New Mexico, Arizona, and California. Clashes erupt across the deserts. Cowboys wear different flags. Railroads stop at borders. And native tribes find themselves caught between two empires that both want land, but now compete rather than unite. In the victorious CSA, slavery remains intact, but pressure grows. Britain and France grow uneasy despite economic ties. The Confederacy is forced into slow reforms, ending the international slave trade, then implementing gradual emancipation. But emancipation here doesn't mean equality. Black Americans in the South live under strict laws, second-class citizenship, and violent enforcement. The seeds of civil unrest are planted early and deep. 2 schoolbooks, 2 flags, 2 truths. In Confederate schools, children are taught that the South rose for liberty, not slavery. Heroes like Stonewall Jackson and Robert E. Lee are immortalized. Northern aggression becomes a phrase burned into the national psyche. A new Southern literature emerges, romantic, traditionalist, defiant. Jazz and blues still rise, but from different cities. Universities like Lee University and Jefferson Davis Institute shape elite Confederate thought. By the 1890s, the USA has recovered, but the wound hasn't closed. Northern media mocks the Confederacy. The South, proud and fiercely independent, responds with tariffs and border patrols. The Mississippi becomes a militarized zone. Both nations spy on each other. Armies grow. The First American Cold War begins. 2 rival powers on the same continent, preparing for a future reckoning. The North powers ahead with factories, steel, and electricity. Cities like Chicago, Detroit, and Boston become modern metropolises. Meanwhile, the South remains rooted in tradition, plantations, aristocracy, and agriculture. But cracks appear. The CSA falls behind in technology. A brain drain begins. Southern youth sneak north to study science, engineering, and medicine. Confederate leaders try to modernize, but without challenging the old order. In this alternate timeline, Lincoln survives but flees to Canada or New York, where he writes memoirs, gives speeches, and becomes a symbol of the lost Union. His words inspire a new generation of Northerners. He speaks not of revenge, but reunification. Statues of Lincoln are raised across northern states, candles burned on his birthday. The South sees him as a myth. The North sees him as a messiah. Hollywood develops in Los Angeles, but without Confederate support. Meanwhile, Richmond creates its own film industry, glorifying Southern heritage. Two types of movies, books, and music emerge. In the North, progressive, gritty, fast-paced. In the South, nostalgic, heroic, deeply traditional. The cultural divide mirrors the political one, and both sides begin to weaponize art. By the turn of the century, both nations are armed, proud, and ready. The Confederate States stands as a unique force in the world, traditional, proud, independent. The Union has reindustrialized, educated, and watches waiting. Whispers of conflict grow louder. Troops mass at borders. Ideologies clash. One question lingers. Will the next century bring peace or fire? What would America look like today if the Confederacy had won? In 1865, America ceased to be a single nation. The North and the South chose different paths. But that didn't mean peace. The Confederacy's victory didn't just end a war, it rewrote the very character of America. Now imagine this. A divided America enters the 20th century. On one side, the North is soaring with the Industrial Revolution. On the other, the South struggles to modernize an economy still rooted in slavery. What about foreign threats? Internal uprisings, media, sports, music, would they all have taken separate paths too? While automobile factories were rising in the North, the South was still trying to survive on cotton fields. But the South wasn't alone. Britain and France provided the Confederacy with trade and military support. This was a cold divide within America, happening nearly 50 years before the actual Cold War. When World War I broke out in 1914, the Confederacy chose to remain neutral. But the North joined the war on Britain's side. Along the border, sabotage, train raids, and covert intelligence operations unfolded. Some historians even refer to the 1920s as the Cold American Civil War. Cinema, jazz, blues, America's cultural explosion had begun. But it came from two separate centers, New York and Atlanta. Elvis was a Northerner. Jazz was born in the South, but it remained divided. Had they been born together, who knows how world culture might have been shaped? In the North, institutions like Harvard and MIT pushed science into a new era. In the South, universities focused more on ideology than innovation. By the 1960s, the North had become the first nation to reach space, while the South was drowning in internal unrest. Martin Luther King wasn't seen as a revolutionary hero in the South. He was branded a traitor. In the 1970s, the Confederacy drew closer to the Soviets. It was a time when the two Americas stood on the brink of nuclear war. The CIA and the Confederate intelligence carried out assassinations against each other. Texas, Florida, and Kentucky became tense buffer zones. Today, when a Confederate citizen sees the American flag on TikTok, they mock it. Meanwhile, Union citizens consume Southern music as mere nostalgia. Same language, same continent, but different hearts. When 9/11 happened, the Confederacy didn't even offer condolences. Yes, this is fiction, but think about it. How could a nation divided, unable to understand each other, unable to share even a common story of its own past, ever become a superpower? America's true strength was always in its unity. Maybe the greatest war was the one we never had to fight. And this alternate history, let's hope it never becomes reality. America's strength doesn't lie in its tanks. It lies in its shared ideals. This story isn't just about what could have happened. It's about what should never happen. Tell us in the comments, what do you think we would have lost if we had never stayed united?